So this is the supplementary video to the 5th grade workshop presentation. This video is designed to help give you some more information about the workshop so that you can better prepare for your own presentations. So I pretty much typed out everything that you say to each group and in the introduction and everything, so there shouldn't be a whole lot more that I really need to cover in this particular video, but there is or are a few things that I think are important to go over. So when you go into the classroom, same as with the 4th grade workshop, when you enter, you'll want to make sure that there is space cleared so that you have room to do your workshop. You also want to make sure that you kind of scan the room and find the best place possible where the green room is going to be for your actors, and also where your costume crew can work, where your stage is going to be, so that you kind of have an idea of where you want that to happen. Take a look around, see if you can see where the light switches are, see if you can see where any outlets are, so that you can help those students when that time comes around. So really kind of just scan the room, see what you can figure out in a short amount of time. If the room is not cleared, ask the teacher if it's alright if you make some space in the room, or if they have a way that they like to clear the room, and then maybe they'll help you with that task. So after the room is cleared, I would encourage everyone to come and sit on the floor, not to sit on the desks. And then you'll go into your intro. And in my intro for the 5th grade, I don't necessarily go over specific classroom rules, because I'm hoping that by 5th grade that they will be able to behave and act like mature 5th graders, and that's what I say, versus going over individual ground rules, but you're welcome to do individual ground rules if you would like. So you just introduce that you're there to actually have them put on a play for you, unlike when Mary Brown normally comes into our classroom, and that it's going to be their job to be behaving responsibly so that they can have a great workshop today. And also that you have a short amount of time to do this, and that's why you'll be moving around quickly from group to group, and that's in order for them to have the best workshop possible. So after you do the intro, then you're going to go into casting, and I just like to have them list off names of different jobs, not necessarily write them on the board, just because you got to get through this kind of quickly. It's the name of the game for this whole workshop. Is a sense of urgency. You really have to move through things very quickly to be able to get the whole workshop in. So you go through, you list some jobs. They may not give you all of the jobs that you're looking to fill in today's workshop. They may give you some that you're not going to fill. Just go ahead and get some ideas rolling. And then, just kind of transition by saying, yeah, we're going to be filling a lot of these roles in today's workshop, and I'm going to be playing the role of the director. Now, the director is in charge of telling the actors where to move on stage, and making sure that the show is an artistic success. You don't necessarily have to say that. But that you're also going to be playing the role of producer, so you explain the role of producer, and then you go through the whole exercise with somebody with a lot of money, ask them to borrow you or to lend you, $100, and then when the play's a big success, you'll pay them back $1,000. Okay, you did the deal. Great, but now I have to make sure the show is a success, so I need to get a stage manager, so you get a stage manager. Now, when you are getting your stage manager and you ask for somebody who's very responsible and very organized, they may point at someone in the class, like all the kids might say, oh, this person, you can choose to call on that person if they're willing. Or you might get someone that raises their hand and then the class says, no, they're not responsible, and then you'd encourage them to be respectful. And then to say, would you like to prove all of them wrong by being a very organized and responsible stage manager? Great. So it's up to you, but I would sometimes, go ahead and even if the kid is getting a little bit of backlash from his peers or her peers, I think that maybe it's a good chance for them to get a chance to do something they may not normally be able to do. So you get your stage manager, and then they're in charge of helping you hand out the scripts. So you'll hand the set of scripts to them, and then you'll basically be calling off each character and giving a short description. So say, okay, the first character is the narrator. Now the narrator needs to be comfortable reading big words and reading in front of a group. Okay, so then you kind of go through for each one. You can choose to do the little audition with Toussaint Charbonneau if you'd like. That's up to you. I think it's kind of fun. And make sure you emphasize that you're doing gender-blind casting before you begin, just so that everybody knows they can play any part. Okay. Once everybody is cast, then you can send the stage manager back to the green room with the actors, where you have sent the actors after they've been cast. And then you're going to get the lights. If there aren't enough students in the classroom to do an assistant for the lights, then I generally, as the instructor, will run the spot. During the show, or maybe you could have your stage manager do it. You just have to kind of be watching how many kids you have. And then the CD player, you give the sound operator the CD player and ask them to go and plug it in to find a place, because usually they'll know where an outlet is more readily than you will. Okay? And then you'll get your costume crew. So you want to see how many students you have left. You want to have at least 2 on your running crew to make it nice and even. So if you've got 5 students left, then I would only choose 3 to be on your costume crew and 2 to be on your run crew. I would always have a larger costume crew than a larger running crew. I'd say 4 is a pretty comfortable number for a running crew. 6 gets to be pretty difficult, but 4 is a pretty comfortable number. I wouldn't go any less than 2 unless you have a really tiny class, because you can have as few as 1 people in your costume crew if need be. So you're just really going to have to be watching your numbers when you're selecting your kids for the groups. Okay? And so once your costume crew has been selected, you send them over to wherever you've designated is going to be the costume crew area. If you'd like to designate one person as the costume crew chief or head, you can do that. I like to do that just because it makes a nice point person to come up and ask me questions instead of everybody coming up and asking me questions if they've got them. Okay? So then once the costume crew has been selected, then it's time to meet with the run crew. And those are your students that are still sitting on the floor. And these are usually your most reluctant students, so you really are going to have to try to pep them up a little bit. So I just like going over to them and saying, okay, I've saved the best for last. You're not only going to be acting, but you're going to be setting up the scenes for our play. So I'm really going to be counting on you to make this show the best it could possibly be. And really just trying to take that moment with them to let them know that they are not, just the leftovers, that they really do play an important role. And then I ask them to each get a chair and bring it to the center of the room and wait patiently until I come around. And then I say to everybody, okay, I'm going to come around and give each group instructions. Please wait patiently, as there's only one of me and a lot of you, and so please keep the volume low while I come around to each group. So then you're going to be going around to each group. I always start off by going to the costume crew because they've got all those materials in front of them, and I don't want them just starting going willy-nilly with the materials until I give them the instructions to do so. So then you just go through the instructions that are on your handy-dandy sheet. Basically, you're just going to tell them that their first task is to create the headbands. If they finish that, then they can make a waterfall using materials in the classroom that the run crew can hold. And if they finish that, to use materials in the classroom to create fire for the Shoshone Village. So then you would go over to the lights, and you would go over the script of the lights and make sure that you're explaining lights up and lights out, having them read through the script, and then also explaining to the spotlight operator what their job is and to shine it around the mouth and not the eyes. So you go through the explanation for that. Also make sure that you tell them to not actually go turning out the lights and on the lights until it's time for the blocking rehearsal. Otherwise you might have the lights flicking on and off while you're trying to work around it. It's just a safety hazard. Then you go over to the sound, and then you ask them if they know how to operate a CD player. I know it seems silly, but just making sure that they know how to operate it. And then you go over their script together. Same as, it was written. You just go over explaining to them the tracks. Music start, music out, music fade out. All of that good stuff. And it's really important to make sure that you tell them to listen through it quietly, because you don't want the volume getting super loud while you're trying to work with the other groups. Okay? Then you go over to your actors. So the actors, you're basically going to be going over the script with them. So you say the words typed in red are the things that you say, the words typed in blue are the things that you do, etc., etc. Go over the tricky words with them, which are in the back of their scripts. And so you just turn to the back, and it's got all of the tricky words and the pronunciations. It doesn't have it in your instructor script, but it does have it in the scripts that the students receive, so make sure that you turn to the back page with them so that they see it's there for reference if they forget later. Okay? So then you tell them that their job is to do 2 read-throughs, which means starting at the top, reading their lines in order out loud, and stage manager, you'll be reading the cues. And then you'll want to make sure to tell them if they have any questions, they should ask their stage manager. If their stage manager doesn't know, the stage manager should be the only one coming up and asking any questions. And then make sure they get started on their read-through before you walk away from the group, just to make sure they get the idea. I mean, it's so obvious to us what a read-through is, but to a lot of these kids, they've never heard that terminology before. So making sure they understand that it's reading their lines out loud one after the other. Okay. Then you go over to the run crew. And so this is when you go over and you're going to spend a good chunk of your time with the run crew going over the blocking. And, you know, you saw the blocking in the video, in the presentation. And so really it's just about getting through the blocking as quickly as possible, but also making sure that they understand and that they're moving those chairs quickly and quietly, that they're getting nice distinctive poses for the Native American village, and that they know the dance. I generally don't go over the blocking again. I usually teach it to them once, and then when we're going to the blocking rehearsal, they get a chance to practice it again. So I like to save a little time there by just teaching it to them once, then having them set up for the top of the show when it's time to go into the blocking rehearsal, and then they get to practice it again. And you can help them through in the blocking rehearsal if they forget what their blocking is. Okay? So you go through that. And then what I like to do is I like to use a signal to get everybody's attention. I promise you it'll do wonders for saving your voice versus, yelling and trying to get everybody's attention. Just a nice clapping thing or whatever to get their attention. And then explain what a blocking rehearsal is. Make sure you tell them which way the audience is so everybody knows which way to face. And then after you've shown them where the audience is, you explain to them that the running crew has already learned their blocking. So now it's time for the actors to learn their blocking. So then you're going to get the stage manager and the spotlight operator down front with you. Check in with all the groups, say, sound, are you ready to start working? Okay, we'll get your sound working during the blocking rehearsal. Costumes, how's it going? Check in with them, see if they have anything to give you. And lights, are you ready to start working during this run? Great. So you bring the spotlight operator down front with you, the stage manager down front with you, and then you get all of your actors set up backstage. And I like to have them raise their hand because I often by this time has forgotten which student is playing what role. So I usually like to say, okay, Odanko, raise your hand. Narrator, raise your hand. Okay, and then I can tell them which sides of the stage to go to. And it's all written out in here where they should go through. And then you saw in my lovely, little stick figure, paper people, the blocking and where everybody should move. And you also have it in the script, the little X's, look like football diagrams. It's also written in there where everybody should be. And you might have to adjust the blocking based on the space and things like that, the room that you're in, and that's totally fine. Okay, then you finish your blocking rehearsal. Oh, and big to mention at the beginning of blocking rehearsal that you'll be saying the lines and cues, and then the next time that they go through it, it'll be their job as actors to say the lines, and stage manager, it'll be their job to say the cues. Okay. Then you have to look at your time and see how much time you have left. If you're looking at the clock and you're seeing you only have about 12 minutes left, you're probably only going to be able to get through a final performance and then your wrap-up, because you want to make sure you have enough time to get all your stuff back. If you're looking at your clock and you're seeing you have 15 minutes plus, you'll probably have enough time to get through a second rehearsal where they get a chance to go through the blocking, they learn and say their lines, and then do a final performance. That's ideal, but if you look at the clock and you see you're running short on time, just say, okay, so because we're running short on time, we're just going to do our final performance, and you're going to want to build it up for them, and really make them feel as excited as they can about doing a performance in their classroom. But you also want to check in with the costume shop to make sure that before you do that final performance that you've gotten all the items that they've created. And if they haven't finished working on everything, just say, thank you so much, we're out of time, I need you to clean up your space. Make sure you tell the costume shop to clean up their space. Because otherwise you'll be at the end of the workshop and you're ready to go, and then you realize you haven't gotten your materials back from the costume people. And they still have to clean up their spot. And so make sure you tell them to clean up and give whatever materials they created, the headbands, etc., to you. Even if it's just a second rehearsal, you can do that. If they are still finishing up some things and you have time for a second rehearsal and then the final performance, let them work a little bit longer, but they've got to be cleaned up after that second rehearsal before the final performance. So you go through either your second rehearsal or your final performance, and then it's time to go through your wrap-up. So when you're wrapping up, you just want to make sure that you collect your scripts in order, because it's really going to help you when you go into your next workshop to make sure that you collect them in the order. So the order is listed out. Make sure you collect all of your items, your CD player, your flashlight, your furs, and all of your scripts, obviously, and all of your costume crew items. And then you kind of just talk about how much work they really did in a short amount of time. And also try to emphasize, which I didn't do in my presentation and I'm sorry for, but really try to emphasize that if they really did like working on some of these other elements, that just think about the next time that there's an opportunity or there's a play that's being worked on or produced at your school, that you don't necessarily have to be an actor. So there's lots of other jobs that it takes to put on a play, and we should consider working on one of those. So yeah, everything is really written out here. There are these frequently asked questions that should be attached to your outline, so I'll kind of go over those. What if there's no light switch in the room? If there's no light switch in the room, you literally are just going to have whoever your lighting person is say, lights off, lights to half, lights up. The spotlight can still operate. It's sort of weird, I know, but so then when you do it, same if there's no way to turn lights to half, you just say half, but just to make sure that everything runs smoothly, you should have them actually vocalize that. What do I do if I'm doing a workshop with 2 classes combined into one workshop? So say you have double the number of kids. Every group is going to be larger. You have them make more headbands. You could even have an advertisement crew that makes posters and tickets. Your running crew obviously is going to be larger. You just kind of have to get creative, and you can maybe even have an assistant sound person that helps them select the music. You could have an assistant director that helps you out, but I don't really know exactly what they would do. You just really have to get creative. We try very hard to not have double 5th grade classes. What do I do with a very small class? Almost as hard as a very large class is a very small class when you don't have enough parts or enough kids in the class to really fill all the parts. So I would definitely get a kid in all of the acting parts. You could read the part of the narrator if you wanted to do that. So you'd only have one person on lights. You could operate the sound if need be. You could just have the CD player up by you. You could also play the role of the stage manager. Have one person on costume crew, one person on running crew. You just also have to be creative. And the last one is, what do I do if I can't find a place to plug in the CD player? Just ask a student or ask the teacher if you really don't see a place. I just like to give it to the student to do and to plug in. So I just sort of alleviate that by just making it the task of the music person to plug it in. So that's some of the extra info. Hopefully you found it helpful, and I really enjoyed this workshop, but you just really have to really think about that sense of urgency and moving through each group and really knowing what's coming up next so you don't waste any time. But I think it's super fun. All right, thanks everybody. Bye.